Lawmakers, parents, and religious groups are at an all-out war against one of America's greatest evils, books. That's right, book banning is still on the rise in the US, and today we're going to talk about banned books that you absolutely need to read right now. Historically, book banning falls into three different categories: religion, morality, and politics. Banning books on the grounds of religion almost always comes as a result of people feeling as though the books promote some sort of anti-religious rhetoric. Two books that I like to talk about here are Frankenstein and Harry Potter. Frankenstein was published in 1818 by Mary Shelley when she was just 20 years old. It follows the story of a young scientist named Victor Frankenstein who, through an unorthodox scientific experiment, creates life through reanimation of dead tissue. He succeeds only to find that he is haunted and tormented by his creation. The book sparked outrage with Christian groups for being unnatural and obscene, and some take issue with Shelley's attempts to play God via her characters. Even more secular sci-fi loving folks have used this as a cautionary tale, warning that technology will turn on you if you take it too far. So in some ways, as we see self-driving cars, dynamic humanoid robots, and a world ruled by algorithms become more and more commonplace, this book serves as an invitation for scientists to consider social risk as engineering challenges that correct for, rather than replicate or exacerbate, existing human biases and discrimination. Harry Potter is a well-known classic that needs no introduction, but for those of you living under a rock, we'll talk about book 1. Harry is born. At age 11, he finds out he's a wizard. He goes to Hogwarts, a school for witchcraft and wizardry. He becomes really popular in school, confronts his arch nemesis Voldemort, makes him go away for a while, and then protects the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone if you live in the US. There are 6 sequels to this book, and these have been banned mostly by fundamentalist Christians for glorifying paganism and witchcraft, promoting the occult, having tones of death and hate, having a lack of respect, being sheer evil, leading children to hatred and rebellion, confusing children, and leading them astray. If you decide to read these and don't own them already, I highly recommend that you buy them used, and I'll leave plenty of links down in the description to do so. J.K. Rowling has proved to us for years that she is incredibly transphobic, and we do not need to and should not continue to line her pockets. Trans people are who they say they are, and the last thing that they need is to be constantly questioned, put in a position to defend themselves, or be told by anyone that they aren't who they say they are. If that's a statement that you disagree with, then this channel probably isn't for you. And while we're talking about trans folks, that's a great segue into books being banned for reasons of morality. The vast majority of books banned in recent times fall into this category and mostly relate to race, identity, and LGBTQIA+ themes. Two notable examples are George, now titled Melissa, and Lawn Boy. Melissa, which used to be published as George until 2021, is a book by Alex Gino. I'll leave links down in the description that detail out the decision to change the name of the book if you're curious in knowing more about that. It follows the story of Melissa, a transgender 4th grade girl. People look at Melissa, but all they see is a boy named George. But she knows that she's not a boy, and when the class play comes around, which is Charlotte's Web, she uses the event to show her mom and the world that she's a girl. She switches roles with her best friend and plays the role of Charlotte, even though she was originally told that she couldn't even try out for the part because she was a boy. The book has been banned because it contained language and references that are inappropriate for young children. Lawn Boy was published in 2018 by Jonathan Evison and follows Mike Munoz, a young Mexican-American man that finds himself unemployed and adrift after being fired from a landscaping job after he refused to do a menial task for a client. He tries to find new work, but struggles with racism, microaggressions, and other social issues like poverty and class. Munoz's search for meaning leads him on a journey of self-discovery as he tries to find his place in society. Both of these books are important because the former features a gay character living a happy, normal, and fulfilling life, and the latter features a character attempting to do so. Banning these titles and others like them are an effort to stop children from understanding that LGBTQIA+ people exist in the world. It's exactly these types of bans and attempts at the erasure of their presence in society that directly contribute to exposing them to violence. And speaking of violence, let's talk about books that are banned for political reasons. We usually see these bans happening as a result of things like a fear of sparking debates on slavery, indoctrination of a social agenda, or for having an anti-police message. Our honorable mention is a book that isn't banned yet, but if Ted Cruz gets his way, it will be, and that's The End of Policing by Alex Vitale. The book argues for the eventual abolition of police to be replaced with decriminalization or non-law enforcement approaches depending on the crime. The defund debate largely states that America should literally redirect funds from police departments and funnel them into things like education, universal health care, youth services, housing, and other community reinvestments. 3 out of every 5 state prisoners and sentenced jail inmates have a substance abuse problem. Half of state and federal prisoners and 2/3 of jail inmates are in serious psychological distress or have a history of mental illness. If we offered access to treatment for these issues alone by means of redirecting funds from police departments, we'd already see a reduction in crime. There's a lot more that I can say about this, but let's talk about 2 books that have been banned and challenged continually over the years: Maus and Persepolis. Maus is a graphic novel that was published in 1986 by Art Spiegelman. It follows his own parents' story in Poland during the 1930s and describes their experiences as the Nazis invaded and persecuted the Jewish population. The Pulitzer Prize-winning book was banned in a Tennessee school district earlier this year for using inappropriate language. They're referring to the 8 curse words throughout the book, and there was controversy over a quick appearance of a naked body, which you begin to realize the absurdity of this argument when you remember that we're referring to cartoon animals. In the book, Jews are drawn as mice and Nazis are drawn as cats. Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi is a graphic novel memoir reflecting on her life from ages 10 to 14 during the Iranian Revolution. She touches on the development of her own perspectives on her family, culture, and country, and other subjects like religion and repression, nationalism and martyrdom, and gender roles and gender norms in society. It was published in 2000 and has been banned and challenged for scenes of violence and torture and for use of the F word. Now here's the thing, I think it's pretty difficult to fully explain topics like wars, the Holocaust, and even slavery in absence of graphic details about the events that took place. And just realistically speaking, we live in a world where teachers have devised ways to block classroom doors in the event of a school shooting, or worse, where 11-year-olds resort to smearing blood on themselves and playing dead in the midst of school shootings. So please, conservative lawmakers of America, spare me the book ban and consider that your time might be much better spent, focusing on writing laws around gun control to prevent grisly events like this from unfolding to begin with. Nevertheless, both of these books are important because they show us the damaging and lasting effects of war, which we're still seeing a bit of these days. These stories aren't promoting violence or bigotry, but they're serving as cautionary tales to the potential dangers of a world that continues to repeat the uglier sides of its history. The best way that these kids can learn to not repeat the mistakes from the past is for them to learn about the history and to be encouraged to start an open dialogue about it. John Green says it best with, "Great books help you understand, and they help you feel understood." Maybe these books will open you or someone you know up to a new perspective, or maybe, just maybe, it'll light a fire under you to fight for the people who don't look like you.